All right, so we are here this evening for our third in the Astro Health sessions. We're working tonight on the houses and how they can figure into the health onion that we've been slowly peeling away. We started with our zodiac signs, and then we went last time to the planets and the asteroids, and now we're going to jump into the houses. All right. So, as I was just saying, this is our last event that is going to be listed on Meetup. From now on, we're on Eventbrite. All of the links to subscribe to Eventbrite, to subscribe to the YouTube channel, to subscribe to our email list if you want, are all going to be linked into this slide. So if you want them, you can get into the slides and find them. They are underneath the video in YouTube as well. So once again, because of the nature of what we're talking about, because of it's working with medical astrology, I have to read my disclaimer. So let me read through the disclaimer here, and then we will take the ground running. All right, so the content provided in this astrology presentation, including all textual material and chart interpretations, are for educational and entertainment purposes. They're not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I am not a medical practitioner, and I do not offer medical advice or health services. The insights and strategies discussed during this session should not be taken as medical guidance or applied as medical solution to any health issue. Participants are encouraged to consult with qualified health professionals regarding any personal concerns or conditions. Any reliance on the information provided in this session is strictly at your own risk. I do not guarantee the accuracy or efficacy of astrological interpretations in predicting or resolving any health-related issues. By participating in this session, you acknowledge and agree that the session facilitator and organizer are not liable for any direct, indirect, incidental, consequential, or any other damages arising out of the or related to your use or inability to use the information or strategies discussed. Participation in this presentation does not establish a professional-client relationship of any kind between the facilitator and the participant. All astrological counseling provided during this session is intended to support self-awareness and professional growth, not to provide health or medical solutions. Okay, we got that out of the way. All right, let's go. So we're going to explore the four primary houses that have direct impacts on health matters. The four houses that primarily you want to focus on in a chart if you're looking at medical astrology are the first house, the sixth house, the eighth house, and the 12th house. All right, we're going to go through each one of them individually. Our first house is our house of self. And so it is going to be representing our physical body and our vitality and our overall approach to life and health. Okay. It kind of sets the tone for our physical presence and how we initiate action in the world. Okay. So it's the step we take to kind of maintain our health. All right. Our sixth house is the house of health and service. And so when you are thinking about it from a health medical astrology point of view, it's going to govern your daily routines, your habits, your health practices, your hygiene, the care that you take of your body on a day-to-day basis. We have our eighth house, which is the house of transformation and regeneration. And when we look at it in a health format, we're looking at healing processes and psychological resilience and our ability to rise, from the ashes of our challenges when we're looking at serious and chronic illnesses. Okay. And of course, it's the house that has to do with birth and death and rebirth. So it's all kind of tied into that eighth house. Our 12th house is the house of the unconscious and solitude. And so it's looking at hidden aspects of our lives, especially things like mental health, secrets, our subconscious mind. Um, it speaks to um, things in health, things about our health that might be concealed or neglected. And it really offers us paths into healing through introspection and spiritual, means. Um, so I'm hoping by the time we get through all these houses that you have got this next layer of thinking about things in a health way astrologically. And so we'll have kind of the ability to kind of highlight our most vital health assets and kind of pinpoint areas where we might face some challenges, and get us ready so that we'll have all of our background done. So next week, in 2 weeks, when we talk about the aspects as far as health and medical astrology go, you'll have all the pieces to kind of understand when we start connecting things and what we're getting, how it affects things. All right. So we're in our first house. All right. So like I said, the first house is self and physical body. All right. And so, you know, the sign that is on the cusp of the first house, along with any kind of planets that are within it, are going to offer you clues about things like your physical appearance, your natural disposition, your approach to life and health challenges. And if it's a well aspected house, then you can look for strong and physical vitality and a really positive approach to kind of maintaining health. But if it's one that's more challenged with aspects, it could highlight areas where you might be vulnerable or have predispositions to certain health conditions. Okay. So by understanding the first house, the dynamics that's in it for health, it's giving us some tools to have proactive engagement with our health, to leverage our strengths, and to be really mindful of areas that might require a little extra care so that we're not blindsided by things coming at us that are unexpected. I really wish that I knew when I was 20 what I know now at 57, because there's so many things that I've gone through health wise that would have probably been very much different than what the things that went down in my world. So when we look at our first house, all right, like I said, it influences our physical body and kind of our perception. It's that natural disposition, our physical strength. And so some examples, I'm going to run quickly through examples for all of the ascendants. We've got Aries. If you have an Aries ascendant, that usually says that you have a very robust constitution and that you are actually probably very dynamic in presence as well. If you have a Taurus ascendant, that says you've got a very strong and sturdy physique. Your body is, I am a Taurus ascendant, and I've had many people refer to me as thick. I'm thick, I'm solid, and that's kind of the Taurus thing. They have a physique that is very sturdy. They usually have a very calm demeanor as well. If you have a Gemini ascendant, usually they are very lean in build, a lot of energy. They also are very youthful looking. A lot of times they will look a lot younger than what they are. If you have a Cancer ascendant, you will have often that roundish face, think of the moon. They'll also put off this very nurturing energy. It's kind of like a very presence. Leo ascendant, we're looking at strength, kind of a radiance, a confident demeanor. A lot of the Leos I know they shine. They are literally radiant. They have this radiance to them that is, you just can't deny it. You can see it. There's a glow about them. Virgo ascendants usually are slender, very health conscious, analytical. Our Libra ascendants usually have a very balanced physique. They're just, I mean this in a positive way. They're neutral in their physique. But yet they're usually very attractive, and they usually have a very charming demeanor about them. Scorpio ascendants, you have a very intense presence. And like I said, usually they have very resilient constitutions. I think that comes from that Scorpio energy. You know, they expect transformation, and so they're very resilient. They always get something from everything they go through. And my experience with Scorpio ascendants usually, as I've said many times in the past, they usually have dark features, you know, dark hair or dark eyes, or and maybe just an olive or darkness, or just a they carry, I personally, but it's because I trine with them because I'm a water sign. I find them very attractive. Maybe not everybody would find a Scorpio attractive, but they have that very mysterious and charismatic kind of something about them. Sagittarius is going to be athletic. Usually they are very optimistic. Usually you see that energy coming through. Capricorn ascendants are usually very disciplined. They but always much what's the word I'm looking for? They seem more than what they are. Okay, they have a mature appearance, a mature nature about them. Aquarius ascendants are unique. They're the one that's going to be a little eccentric. They're going to have an eccentric look, or there's going to be something about them that is very innovative, very, you know, non-conforming, something that's very different. And then Pisces ascendants are usually very sensitive in constitution. And they kind of have a bit of a dreaminess about them. And usually they have a very compassionate demeanor. You can feel them caring about what's going on around them. As far as planetary influences in the first house, we're basically planets in the first house are going to refine health characteristics and physicality in a person. So some examples, all right, if so we've got some well aspected rulers, okay, so let's say we have Jupiter ruling the first house. That would give us some strong defenses against illness. That would be a very beneficial thing to have. That would make it, that would be me saying that it's a well aspected ruler. They may indicate, you know, a robust health and a strong, mature system. Okay. A sun ruling the first house, that would be a very supportive aspect as well. One that would be well aspected. It could be strong vitality, the ability to recover quickly from illness. It usually, sun in the first house usually indicates kind of a resilient constitution. We have Venus ruling the first house. That usually, again, Venus, and it would suggest like a general positive and very balanced approach to health and wellness, kind of a positive health outlook generally. Okay, some challenging aspects. All right, so Mars, of course, Mars in the first house with difficult aspects. I add that piece. So if there's challenging aspects to it, which, like I said, we're going to dig into much deeper when we do the aspect presentation in 2 weeks. But it would indicate kind of a predisposition, perhaps, to getting into accidents or maybe inflammatory type conditions. Saturn in the first house could suggest maybe bone or skin issues, maybe a tendency to be a little more melancholy, maybe a little bit lower energy. Neptune in the first house could indicate a susceptibility to allergies, sensitivities, issues that relate to the immune system. Pluto in our first house might point to having a tendency towards like really intense health crises, or having very transformative health experience. It's like they're requiring these deep healing processes. So something happens to them and it transforms them. Their health is transforming them in some way. When we look at stress management, the ascendant sign and the first house planets kind of, like I said, reflect very, very, very heavily the health management strategies that we're going to use. So let's roll through our ascendants again. So if you've got an Aries ascendant and we're thinking about stress management and health approach, an Aries ascendant is going to be very direct, very proactive, and they're going to be quick to take action. A Taurus ascendant is going to be steady, consistent, and they're going to have a lot of value with comfort and routine. A Gemini ascendant is going to be very adaptable and communicative. They're going to be talking about what's wrong, and they're going to not be afraid to engage in a variety of health practices. A Cancer ascendant is intuitive, nurturing, and so they're going to be really focusing in on emotional well-being. A Leo ascendant is going to kind of challenges confidently and with a lot of optimism. A Virgo ascendant is, when it comes to health, is going to be well-being and stress, is going to be very analytical, very cautious. They're going to have a very detail-focused health program, a health regime or a health process. They will have a set something that they do. Libra ascendants are going to, of course, be seeking balance and harmony in what they're doing. And for them, they're going to value the aesthetics of health routines. Scorpio, we're going to be, again, thinking intensity, transformation, and they're very determined in health. They will, whatever they decide, whatever they focus on as being their pursuit in health matters, they will follow it. Okay. Sagittarius ascendant, they're going to be the ones that are really involved in outdoor things, outdoor activities, outdoor athletic things. They're going to have a very adventurous kind of health, and well-being. Very optimistic. Capricorn ascendants are going to be very disciplined and very practical about their health and their stress reduction. And they are really, really going to focus on that long-term health goals. Aquarius is going to be one that's going to be very experimental in their health practices. They're okay with innovation. They're okay with trying things that maybe not everybody knows about, or maybe not everybody does. They're okay with doing the things that are a little bit eccentric, or nonconformist. Pisces ascendant, they're going to be working on things very holistically. They're going to be really working hard on integrating some spirituality into their well-being and their management of stress and that sort of things. As far as the initiation, this is where we're looking at motivation for fitness, for doing preventative measures, and for seeking medical care. Okay. So some examples, the Aries ascendant, high energy and enthusiasm for physical fitness, would prefer intense competitive activities, maybe martial arts or just any kind of physical sport. Taurus ascendant is going to be more motivated by comfort and stability. So they're going to enjoy things that are very consistent and very grounding, like yoga or weight training. Gemini, man, we were looking at that Gemini energy. So they're going to want variety. And whatever they're doing physically, it's probably going to have some mental stimulation attached to it. So it could be dynamic things like dancing or aerobics or having, mixed fitness routines where they do something that's maybe changing or not anything set, just vary. Cancer ascendants are going to, again, they're going to like activities that are a little bit more comfort and security based. So perhaps home based workouts or maybe swimming, things that have to do with water, things of that nature. All right. Leo ascendants are going to probably want to and really enjoy perhaps some kind of physical activity that maybe brings them some recognition or maybe puts them in some kind of spotlight. So they would be really motivated by like group classes or performance-based activities or maybe leading fitness groups. Virgo ascendants, health conscious. So they're going to have very structured routines. They're going to be planned. They're going to be doing things like maybe Pilates or some, planned like training workout regimen. Libra ascendants are going to enjoy things that are part of like, how do I put this? They're going to like to do things that are pleasing, that are balanced and harmonic, but have pleasing things to, like they're in a pleasing environment, so like they might be one to want to go to dances or maybe have a partner to work out with them or do some kind of social sports, not a sport for, the performance based or the high dynamic of athleticism, but more of a social kind of thing, a relationship based kind of activities. Scorpio is going to be motivated by activities that really push those limits and encourage really deep focus. So like some of the extreme sports or maybe like powerlifting, not necessarily the run-of-the-mill type activities. Sagittarius ascendants, because of that adventurous and that freedom loving nature, is going to prefer things outside. So hiking, running, maybe a sport that involves some kind of travel, going places. Capricorn ascendants, we're looking at very structured long-term fitness plans, maybe endurance training. Although it sounds probably kind of cliche, maybe some mountain climbing, things of that nature. Aquarius ascendants are going to, again, they're going to be motivated by very unique and experimental type fitness practices. So maybe tech-based workouts or maybe a group fitness, kind of thing. And then our Pisces ascendants are going to prefer things that integrate body and mind. So they're going to be wanting to do things like Tai Chi or maybe something to do with water or perhaps dance. Okay, so for them, it's going to be something much more rhythmic and methodical and just engaging both the mind and the body. Okay, so in understanding the first house, basically it helps to navigate health journeys by kind of aligning our decisions with our inherent nature and promoting that overall vitality. So we want to look at what that ascendant is, and we want to look at what's in that first house to kind of give us some idea of what our vitality is and perhaps what we need to focus on to maintain health and to produce, you know, positive health things in our life. All right, our sixth house. The sixth house is, like I said earlier, health, service, daily routine. And so it's really very pivotal in our everyday wellness kind of practices. It governs things like our work habits, our hygiene, our diet, exercise. It's essentially all the, the minutia of a daily life that kind of actually cumulatively impacts our overall health. It's the stuff because we do it over and over and over that kind of piles upon us and affects us, maybe sometimes without us even knowing that we're being affected by it. Right. So when we look at our sixth house, we're looking at, the health and the daily routine. So some examples of, looking at how the sixth house might govern, those daily habits and those work environments and service to others, and how that is correlating with our health practices and our hygiene and our body care. So like if we have Virgo on the sixth house cusp, that would be someone who was highly focused on health routine, hygiene, cleanliness. Maybe they might be meticulous when it came to things like their diet, their exercise. If we were looking at, say, Pisces, sixth house cusp, that would be more of somebody who might struggle with consistent routines. They prefer more of that intuitiveness with health practices. They kind of want to go with what holistically they feel like they need, kind of thing. So you can see there, that vast difference, because those two are oppositional. So you can kind of see what it would be like on one side and then what it would be like on the other. When we look at planetary influence, planets in the sixth house shape our approach to health and our daily work. So some examples of that would be, say, Sun in the sixth house. That would be somebody who has a strong focus on maintaining health. They may work in a health-related field. Let's say we have Mars in the sixth house. That's somebody who has high energy for work and fitness and may experience occasional overexertion. Okay. Again, though, you have to, when we're thinking about these things, think about the sign, think about what else is going on besides just that house. All right. So when we look at health and vitality, sixth house, some well-aspected rulers, again, we're thinking Jupiter and Venus. So let's say it's Jupiter. Say you have Jupiter ruling your sixth house. That would be a very positive aspect, and it could indicate like you have really effective health practices. Maybe you have a really positive attitude toward providing, service towards others and service in general in the community. So it's a very compassionate and flowing situation for you. When we look at Venus in that sixth house, we are looking at, harmonious aspects, that suggest like a balance between work and health. Okay, so Venus would be kind of wanting to give a balance if you've got Venus ruling your sixth house. All right, challenging planets. Saturn ruling the sixth house, especially if it has a difficult aspect to it, could indicate a chronic health issue or a tendency to overwork. Some specific type conditions. If we had Neptune, say, in the sixth house, that could be a susceptibility to stress-related conditions, maybe immune system sensitivities. Let's say we have Pluto in our sixth house. That would be a really intense focus on health. And again, it would be the potential for having health crisis or things that happen that have to do with deep healing, that they're transformational for that person. So, for them, transformation is a health crisis, perhaps. We look at stress. We are looking at, and I'm going to run through all of the signs with this one. We're looking at how the daily routines impact stress levels and overall health. Okay, so if you've got Aries on that sixth house cusp, you're looking at direct and active health routines that need physical outlets for stress. Taurus on that sixth house cusp, we've got steady consistency, relaxing, grounding health practices. It's all about the grounding. Gemini, we're looking at variety, mental stimulation, preferring dynamic or varied health routines. Cancer sixth house cusp is going to be very intuitive, very nurturing, focusing on emotional and dietary health. Leo sixth house cusp is confidence and pride. They're going to want to find some way to get recognition for their health efforts. They're going to do really, really well in group fitness. Virgo on our sixth house cusp is going to, again, have that very detail-oriented, very methodical, meticulous approach to health and hygiene. Libra, sixth house, we're looking at aesthetically pleasing health routines. Okay, so they're going to do things that not only keep their body healthy, but they're trying to keep themselves aesthetically healthy. So you're going to see them working on skin and the aesthetic things about us as well. Scorpio, sixth house cusp. Again, they're going to probably pursue transformative health practices. They're going to be very intense and determined about what they're doing. Sagittarius sixth house, we're looking at kind of the same vibe that we've had before, but of course basing it on how you are looking at stress. And for them, stress relief is going to be physical activity, most likely probably outdoor physical activity, or if it is indoor activity, it's going to be indoor activity that you could do outdoor. So, they might be a treadmill person or something of that nature, if they had no other choice. Again, it could be travel related fitness. Like routine or something where they're going places, because that would be stress and health both being worked at the same time. Capricorn, sixth house cusp, we're looking at those long-term health goals, the very structured routines. We're looking at things that are very practical, easy to do things that you do without thinking about it on a daily basis, because you got yourself organized and you've got this very structured routine going on in your life that you just do. Aquarius, sixth house cusp, we're looking at when you're dealing with stress, possibly looking into health things and health practices and maybe methods, things like the not so much anymore, but I would say kind of the more alternative type things like meditation and body work and maybe Reiki and all of the alternative. I think of drumming and all of the alternative things that would de-stress and promote that, kind of innovative health practices. Spiritual and intuitive health practices. Those are going to be definitely the ones that you see with and when I say spiritual, it's whatever is spiritual for them. It could be something in a very structured spiritual path, or it could be a looser spiritual path, or maybe um, uh, a spiritual with soul and nature. But for them, their health practices and their stress relief are going to be very much spiritually and intuitively based. When we look at what motivates, and we're looking at it based on planets, we could look at the sun in the sixth house. Like I said, you're going to have a very strong drive there to maintain health and wellness. Maybe even someone who begins health initiatives at work, or who leads the health initiatives at work. Moon in that sixth house is going to be somebody who's driven by nurturing and caring, not only for themselves, but for others. So they're going to be looking for those emotional well-being routines. Mercury in our sixth house, we're looking at focusing on mental aspects of health. They would be the individual that would probably research health topics, discuss health topics, attend webinars and read books, and they would be the ones that wouldn't be afraid to maybe try out some of the modern, the more what's the word I'm looking for? The more avant-garde kind of things, the things that are just coming over, that are popular now, that maybe aren't tried and true. They want to really research them, figure out if they're something that they think would be of value to them. Venus in our sixth house is going to want to do things that are pleasurable. So I see Venus sixth house maybe wanting, they could be the ones that maybe might want to go shopping. Maybe that is stress relief for them. Or maybe somebody who wants to go to the spa. That would be very, stress relieving for them. It could be something that they could do on a regular basis, bring calmness and harmony. Mars in the sixth house, benefit from vigorous exercise routines. It's Mars. Often we think about Mars in that warrior aspect, but if you take him and you put him in that he's very passionate about things, it would be somebody with a lot of passion, motivation, energy towards wanting to be fit. Jupiter in our sixth house, we are looking at kind of an optimistic, expansive approach to health. Again, this would be somebody who wants to learn about health and practice a variety of modalities. They're going to let themselves be pinned in by just one sort. They're going to be open to a variety of different modalities. Saturn in our sixth house, we're looking at discipline, structure approach to health. They're looking at, they might experience health challenges that require that long-term management. So they might get something that they have to continuously manage. Uranus in our sixth house, we're looking at innovative and unconventional health practices. They're going to be somebody, again, that is with that Uranus in the sixth house that is okay with experimenting, maybe with new health technology, new health trends. That was the word I was looking for earlier, and I couldn't pull it. Trends. So, when where Uranus is, think about those are the people, the first people who got the sixth housers are the first ones who got the smartwatch, so they could track their steps, or started wearing the step monitors, or maybe they're the ones that were the first to start using a heart monitor when they were running, or any of those kind of things, or any new health technology. They have all kinds now, ones that check your keto level, all kinds of things. that are technology-based health-wise. The Uranus in sixth house people would be the ones that would be more than willing to experiment with new health tech. Neptune in sixth house are going to be very holistic and intuitive with health. They are the ones that actually need to be perhaps maybe mindful of boundaries and consistency, because they may have issues with maintaining those boundaries and consistency when it comes to um, initiating and prolonging any kind of health effort. Pluto in sixth house, intense focus on, again, that transformation through health. This a Pluto in sixth house, looking at it from a health perspective, this is somebody who probably will have some kind of significant health crisis, or perhaps some kind of health or something that happens that you have to go through that long-term healing to process what's went on. All right. So when we think about that sixth house, it's important to understand how that sixth house is going to help us navigate our daily health practice, our work-related well-being, by kind of aligning our routines with our inherent kind of nature and kind of promoting balance just based on what nature we have that is actually running us. All right, eighth house. So when we look at the eighth house, we think of, we're in the realm now of transformation, regeneration, those shared resources. We're going to look at things that are going to be dealing with deeper processes of healing and recovery. It's going to cover things like surgery, psychotherapy, any other transformative healing modality that could involve some kind of significant change or some kind of turnaround. This eighth house is going to connect to perhaps inheritance. It could extend to genetic or familial kind of health issues that are passed down through generations. It's going to, when we explore this house, we're going to kind of be looking at our capacity for resilience, recovery, potential profound healing. And often it's kind of it's the after facing some kind of health crisis or going through some kind of deep psychological work. Okay. So when we look at what goes with deep healing and transformation, birth, death, rebirth, things, like I said, that are associated with really, really deep psychological or crises or regeneration, just things that are very intense. So we're looking at, let's say, Scorpio is on the cusp of the eighth house. It would be a really strong focus on healing and renewal. If you've got Taurus on your eighth house cusp, that could be someone that finds transformation going through stability and material resources, slower, but in a very steady regenerative way. Okay, so they take things slowly. It's not speedy, it's very slow regeneration. When we look at Gemini on that eighth house cusp, you're looking at a mental transformation, healing through communicating, through talking, through information exchange. Aquarius on the eighth house cusp is going to be unconventional healing methods. Okay, so let's look at some of the planetary influence. All right, so planets in the eighth house are going to shape experiences that have to do with these, these crises or these transformations as far as health is based. So think about Venus. We've got Venus in the eighth house. That could be healing through relationship or some kind of emotional bond to someone or something. Mars in that eighth house could be a very energetic approach to transforming something maybe involving kind of really intense activities. Saturn in the eighth house is going to produce challenges in regeneration. And like I said, those long-term things, it's something that's going to require patience and persistence to overcome and to regenerate. If we're looking at things that are well aspected, Jupiter would be a ruling Jupiter would be well aspected in the eighth house. That would be a very positive, especially if it's positively aspected. It would indicate like a strong regenerative ability and optimism in crisis. As if you had the sun ruling the eighth house, that could give you, especially if it again was supported in with aspect, it could suggest very effective personal transformation and vitality. Some challenging aspects could be Mars, if it rules the eighth house, especially if it's not well aspected, if it has difficult aspects, could indicate intense health challenges or maybe intensely risky behaviors. Some specifics, let's say we had Neptune in the eighth house, that could be susceptibility to some kind of chronic or mysterious illness, maybe something that needs spiritual or holistic healing. Saturn in the eighth house would be, like I said, a prolonged recovery period, maybe a challenge of something that had to do with reproductive health or regeneration. Uranus in that eighth house would be sudden, unexpected health crisis. One you kind of had to look at some kind of unconditional, some healing approach that perhaps was new or was not what you would think initially to use, something that was out of the ordinary. When we think about stress management and health approach, basically this is going to reflect how an individual copes with stress and how they undergo transformation. All right, so let's say we have Aries on that eighth house. All right, that is somebody who's going to focus on a health crisis head on. They're going to go directly to it. It's, they're going to have that courage and they're going to be like, let's do this. Let's take care of this. Cancer on the eighth house cusp might be someone who wants to kind of go about it with maybe family support, going about it from, thinking about it a more emotional, approach to healing, working on the emotional well-being. Libra is going to want to involve partners in the healing process. So they're not going to want to go it alone. They're going to be, that Libra eighth house cusp is going to say that we want to involve others in our healing. Capricorn eighth house, again, we're looking at perhaps health crises that are have long-term recovery or have require some kind of discipline in the for the person to overcome it. Sagittarius eighth house is going to seek alternative and diverse healing methods. And then Pisces, that eighth house cusp, are going to, again, they're going to be that mind-body person. They're going to want to use intuition and spiritual, capacity for healing. Okay. As far as initiating action, so basically where the motivation is coming from. So examples, Mars in the eighth house, that's going to cause an individual to be motivated by intense activities, perhaps things like martial arts or psychological work, doing hypnotherapy, doing, deep work with a therapist, a counselor. Um, Mercury in the eighth house is going to um, be the one that is motivated by research, motivated by knowledge-based healing. Moon in eighth house is going to be really focused on inner work, inner emotional work, psychological well-being. So their motivation is going to be that inner work. Uranus in that eighth house, again, they're going to be somebody who wants to experiment with new and maybe unusual or radical healing techniques. They're not going to be afraid to try things that maybe are not tried. Jupiter, eighth house, as we said, going to be very spiritual and philosophical in motivation when it comes to spirituality and healing, and that's what's going to motivate them to make transformation in themselves. And then Venus in the eighth house is going to be close emotional bonds. That's what's going to motivate them. They're going to heal through love and relationships. Okay. So when we look at the eighth house, again, we're working on understanding the eighth house and how it helps navigate really deep healing and transformation. And it gives you clues on how to align somebody's personal regeneration process with their inheritor, when it comes to vitality and resilience. All right. Lastly, we have the 12th house. All right. So the 12th house is going to be associated with unconscious, hidden things, karmic cycles, things that relate to chronic illness, mental health issues, ailments, things that are difficult to diagnose or maybe are hidden from view. It could encompass, again, things like hospitals, institutions that isolate an individual from society. It could illuminate spiritual and karmic dimensions of health challenges, kind of offering insight on how our past actions in this life or a previous one might influence our current health. It really is a space that invites a kind of a deep exploration of the unconscious mind's role in our physical well-being, and emphasizes the need for the holistic healing that addresses the body, the mind, and the spirit all together. Okay. So when we are looking at this, like I said, we're looking at the subconscious mind, solitude, mental health, hidden strength or weakness when it comes to health. Again, depending on aspects. Some examples, let's say you've got Pisces, 12th house cusp. That would be someone who was deeply intuitive, but yet they're probably prone to escapism. Aries, we've got, right next door to Pisces, if it was an Aries 12th house, that would be somebody with hidden a certain assertiveness, somebody with perhaps an inner conflict going on with inside them, that they're kind of fighting their own little internal battle. If we're looking at planetary influences in the 12th house, again, these are the things that are going to be shaping those hidden aspects of personality and health. So let's say we've got the moon in the 12th house. Again, we're looking at deep emotional undercurrent, potential for hidden anxiety. Saturn in the 12th house, hidden fears, a potential for some kind of chronic psychological burden. Okay. We have, when we're looking at the rulers being well aspected, Venus ruling a 12th house would, especially with a positive aspect, would be a very balanced and harmonious subconscious. Um, Neptune ruling that 12th house, especially again, if it's got a harmonious aspect to it, would be strong, strong intuitive abilities and spiritual resilience. Perhaps challenges. We could have Mars in the 12th house, ruling that 12th house, with a difficult aspect, could be hidden anger, maybe suppressed energy, some conditions, say you had challenging aspected Neptune in 12th house, could be addictions. Pluto in the 12th house could be like really deep psychological issues, or really, really intense transformative crises. Right? When we're looking at stress management and health, this is, we're thinking about how an individual copes with this hidden stress and this, and these mental health kind of scenarios. So let's say we have Taurus on the 12th house cusp. This is someone who's going to seek comfort in solitude. So they're the ones that you're going to see isolating. They're the ones that are going, for them, their strength is going to come from being alone. That actually may give them hidden strength. It may increase their patience, increase their endurance. Leo on the 12th house, somebody who really needs a creative outlet for hidden frustration. And they might have kind of like those secret desires for recognition. Libra, 12th house, we're looking at somebody who's striving for inner peace. They're someone who probably would use art or anything that's beautiful, so art, maybe performing arts, whatever they found to be beautiful as a form of mental escape. So for them, they would be escaping into something that is some form of something beautiful. A Sagittarius 12th house cusp would be optimistic, but yet restless. It would be someone seeking solstice. They would want to find peace in spiritual things, peace in philosophical things. When we look at the action initiation, all right, so we're looking again at motivation. These are for inner healing and addressing subconscious. In the 12th house could drive towards battles and hidden conflict. They might use meditation or maybe some kind of solitary activity to channel their energy to make it work for them. Mercury, 12th house, would be looking at very reflective approaches, very analytical approaches to inner issues. They might be someone who would enjoy journaling or doing private studies on things. The sun in the 12th house would be someone who is seeking that self-illumination and understanding. They're trying to find who they are. It might make them engage in solitary reflection or solitary spiritual practices. Jupiter in the 12th house would be somebody who has an expansive inner life. This one is someone who would be very optimistic about growing spiritually and most likely would have the hidden strengths versus the hidden challenges. All right. So when we're looking at the 12th house, as far as health and wellness, we're looking at information for navigating mental health and health aspects. We're looking at aligning our personal growth and our healing processes with the nature of what the energy is on that cusp and what's located in that planet, in the planets in that house, to give us well-being and inner peace. Okay. So I'm sure at least one of you is thinking, but what about the other houses? That's only four of them. The four houses are the primary houses you look to. That's where you're going to go first. But the non-primary houses do also provide insights into health conditions and their potential manifestations in the body. So they're not to be ignored or forgotten. They're just not quite as informative. They aren't, they aren't the overseeing arch of what is causing the motivation, what's causing the modality, what's causing the stress. It's more of a way to look for health conditions that could be going on or might appear at some point. All right, so let's look at the other houses. All right, so like I said, the 1, the 6, the 8, and the 12 are foundation. They give you foundational health understanding. The other houses are for more comprehensive understandings. Okay, so let's look at our houses. All right, so let me give you an example before I go through all of them. So let's think, okay, we're thinking this is, and I will give you my personal opinion. I consider the fourth house also one of the foundational houses. Okay, so I'm going to mention it first because I have found that the fourth house is where we find emotional and physical health connection. It is the house that you look at when trying to figure out how emotional well-being is going to impact physical health, especially digestive health. Okay. Our third house, Gemini, nervous system and communication. That third house, Gemini kind of energy is going to link respiratory and nervous system health into cognitive and communicative functions. Okay. If you want to find something structural or systematic as far as health goes, go to your 10th house because it's going to focus on that skeletal health, the skeleton and chronic condition, emphasizing something that we might have to think about needing long-term health strategies for. Okay. If you want to find out about social interaction, community involvement, look at the 11th house. It's going to help suggest social interaction and action and community involvement and the effect that it might have on our overall vitality and our circulatory health. Okay. So I'm going to run quickly through our each house and kind of just go through what it governs and maybe some implications that go with it. All right. So our second house would govern throat, neck, vocal cords, lower jaw, thyroid gland. Some implications could be sore throats, thyroid issues. Of course, this is a Taurus association, also a Venus association. These can point to issues related to cosmetic concerns or treatments. Okay. Third house governs shoulders, arms, hands, lungs, nervous system. I've even heard some say legs, as in far as them being our extremities, because we're thinking of that Mercury energy with the nervous system running from head to toe. Some health implications would be maybe respiratory ailments, asthma, bronchitis, carpal tunnel syndrome, any kind of repetitive strain injuries, anxiety, nervous disorders. Thinking about Mercury ruling Gemini and how that is involved in the house. It could be also issues that might involve communication and cognitive functions. Okay. Fourth house, we're looking at chest, breast, stomach, and digestive system. Okay. So we would be looking at conditions like uh, acid reflux, stomach ulcers, breast health, uh, emotionally driven digestive issues. Uh, the moon's influence. So you could be looking at a strong connection between emotion and physical health, psychosomatic conditions. Okay. Fifth house is heart, spine, and overall vitality. Okay. And we're looking at cardiovascular conditions, heart disease, spinal problems, issues with vitality and energy level. Leo's association with the sun emphasizes the importance of things like maintaining strong heart health, vitality through physical activity, and things that you find joyful, maybe hobbies, things you're passion for. Seventh house governs kidneys, lower back, bladder. So some health implications could be things like urinary tract infections, kidney stones, lower back pain, things that have to do with balancing yourself. So it's Libra's house, and we have Venus influence there. So it could highlight the importance of relationships in maintaining overall health, suggesting that stress in partnerships could manifest physically for someone. Ninth house is hips, thighs, liver, sciatic nerve. So health implications would be things like sciatica, maybe hip issues, um, hip degeneration, liver disease, things that relate to excessive indulgence. We're looking at, that Jupiter influence, which could indicate things have to do with over expansion, that overindulgence, like obesity or maybe liver damage. 10th house would govern knees, bones, joints, skin, health implications like arthritis, joint pain, knee injuries, skin conditions like eczema, psoriasis. You're looking at Saturn having an influence there, so it could be chronic conditions that require those long-term, managing and discipline to overcome. 11th house, circulatory system, ankles, and shins. So we're looking at health things like circulation problems, varicose veins, ankle injuries, conditions affecting the lower legs. We're looking at which could suggest maybe sudden or unexpected health issues or a need for unconventional treatment approaches. When I think of the 11th house personal example, last summer in July, I had Saturn and it was Saturn and I believe Mars might have been. It's either Mars or the Sun. No, my Mars was in opposite. Anyway, I fell off my porch suddenly, unexpectedly, and I sprained my ankle. And so in my mind, I immediately, when I pulled the chart, I could see those things there. And I was like, darn, I should have been more careful today. Probably shouldn't have been out there working on the porch. Because of the feasibility that the things were all aspecting and were lining up in a way to my chart that those kinds of things could have been activated. I also had Uranus at that moment in my first house, which didn't help. All right. Some chart examples. I have two charts that we're going to look at here. I have one from the first session. We had a volunteer. Is she here today? She's not. Okay. She's not here, but she did reveal who she was, so I'm not afraid. for us to call her by name. Her name is Catherine. And our very first one, when we looked at the zodiac signs, we looked at her chart as an example. We kind of went through where each thing was so that we could kind of figure out how to do it for our own. So to kind of just do a tiny recap, what we know about her chart, because we looked at it the first time we looked at it, she has a Leo sun, which gave her vibrant energy and a strong immune system and made her pretty quick to recover from illness. She was very dynamic in nature, very active lifestyle. She has a Taurus moon, so she had a very stable constitution. She preferred a routine, and she liked to do very consistent things for her health. She liked to have maintaining a good practice of things. She had a Capricorn ascendant, so we could see that she had a very structured mindset when it came to her health and preventing things. And it gave her some resilience. All right. We saw her vulnerabilities were that Leo sun let us know that she had potential for issues with health and spine, especially when she was under stress and physical strain, and that there was also a predisposition to inflammatory conditions, which she told us was correct, that she was experiencing that at the moment. We, from her Taurus moon, knew that she had a susceptibility to throat infections and thyroid imbalances, and that she could have challenges with weight management due to being indulgent sometimes. And she said that agreed with what she had occur as well. And she had joint and bone conditions because of the Capricorn ascendant, which provided vulnerability to bone and joint issues like arthritis and osteoporosis, perhaps a sluggish digestive system, and how stress-related ailments were very big for her, which she said was true. All right, so let's look at what we know, and let's throw in the houses to see if it adds validity, adds more strength to some of the things that she said she was saying. Okay, so when we look at our first house, okay, turn my pointy thing on here. All right, so we're looking at our first house. All right, so we know that that's Capricorn ascendant. So what do we know about her body and her vitality? So we know that it's ruled by Saturn. So she could have governed bones, teeth, skin, could be issues. We see no planets there, so we don't have anything of that nature coming through. It says, that we could have some joint problems, arthritis, maybe dental health issues. She has a demeanor focus for responsibility, which could lead to stress-related conditions. She mentioned to us that she was dealing with a lot of stress-related issues right now. And so she was working hard on trying to balance her stress levels. Okay. If we look at her sixth house, again, we have no planets, but we have Gemini. And so Gemini, ruled by Mercury, would emphasize that in the sixth house, when we're looking at her health routines and her digestive system and her daily routine and things of that nature, that we're looking at somebody who's probably has an emphasis on the nervous system, lungs, hands. She could have anxiety, stress-related conditions. Again, that's repeating, and she's told us that is an issue. Respiratory ailments, potential challenge in maintaining a regular routine, which she has said that she does have problems with. Because Gemini is mutable, that tells us that there could be a fluctuating health kind of scenario for her, that might require her to do a lot of mental relaxation techniques and to communicate about her health and her health concerns. So again, and I'm guessing also that with Gemini and the Mercury influence, that she's probably someone who's very um, curious about health things. She studies health. She wants to know more about health. She's, okay with a variety of health type things going on in her life. And then when we look at her 8th house, we do have some stuff here. We have both the Sun and Mercury here in Leo. Okay. So with that 8th house, we know that we've got, Leo ruled by the Sun. So we're looking at heart and back health. And so we know that she's expressed, and it has shown in her 1st house that she could have issues with her back, which she does. But this 8th house tells us, being in Leo, that she goes through transformative health experiences, like, treatments or surgeries, but she does them with an emphasis on regeneration and healing. So they usually turn out positively. And I believe she is in the process of going through something of that nature right now. So again, that reflects that Sun and Leo energy on the 8th house. When we look at her 12th house, we've got Mars in there. Mars in Sagittarius. So let's think about, okay, we've got Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter. Okay, so she's got some Jupiter influence there. So we're not looking at aspects at this point, but that could be positive because we are trying the 8th house, and the 8th house sounds positive. So we're looking at that Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, which would influence liver, hips, thighs, potential issues perhaps with the subconscious, which might include maybe her wanting to escape. And with it being Sagittarius, it could be overindulgence. It could be maybe some psychological challenges that she might have, maybe some subconscious ones, some inner ones that we might not know. Again, she's got a mutable fire sign. So that is going to kind of perhaps lead to a tendency to overextend herself physically and mentally, which makes her have to go into introspective, kind of solitude and secluded rest and introspection, which what I know of her, that it would be true as well. And then we have our 12th house influence. It does make things grow and expand, but think about it, grow and expand. So if it's in an area where you could have, it would make your subconscious mind grow and expand, that's not necessarily a positive, okay? Because it could make you over-focused, overdoing, over involving. And it could also reveal hidden health issues. The positive would be, though, with that Jupiter influence, that most likely the hidden health things could be positive things. They could be assets, strengths versus non-assets. But she's got Mars in there. So, you've got also that energy of wanting to do things, wanting things to happen, wanting to make things go. I wish she was here so she could give us a little more insight this evening on what we've got going here. All right. I also have a famous person chart for you. It is Heath Ledger. I don't know if you are familiar with him. I'll give you a tiny bit of information on him. He's an Australian actor. He was born April the 4th, 1979. He was an actor in films like 10 Things I Hate About You, A Knight's Tale, Brokeback Mountain. He received critical acclaim and an Academy Award nomination for Brokeback Mountain. he had an iconic role as the Joker in Dark Knight, which he also earned an after death because he died during that role, an after death Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. And and so he struggled, looking at his history, he struggled with insomnia, he struggled with mental health issues, and he died of an overdose on January the 22nd of 2008 when he was 28 years old. So I want to look at his chart. First, I want to look at it from the aspect of looking at the houses and looking at what's going on in his houses. Then I want to look at his death and see what we can see there related to what was going on in his chart, health-wise, to see if we have implication of what was happening. Yes, he was young. All right, so let's go through his chart here. All right, so we're going to start here with the first house. All right, so in his first house, he had Aries, and he had his ascendant, and he had the sun. And so we know that this is going to represent his physical body, his appearance, and his vitality. All right, and we know that Aries is ruled by Mars. So that's a sign of action and energy, assertive. And usually people with that Aries ascendant are going to exhibit really dynamic and energetic personalities. That they could be a little impulsive though, and they could have some stress related issues. Okay. So knowing that, if we think about the health implications that might come, Aries governs the head, the face, and the brain. And so individuals with this placement might experience headaches, migraines, sinus issues. And he has well-known documented struggles with insomnia and stress. And this could be made worse by high energy and the restlessness that was associated with that ascendant in the first house. And if you think about the fact too, you've got the sun and the ascendant conjunct. And so that's going to make these more heightened. That's going to lead them to becoming potentially issues related to stress management and to mental fatigue. Okay. If we go over to his sixth house and we look at his sixth house, it's Virgo. All right. So in his sixth house, he has Saturn and he had his North Node. So if we look at that Saturn in Virgo, all right, in that sixth house. So we know the sixth house is going to be talking about his daily routines, his motivation, health-wise, what his structure is. So Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So that's going to emphasize detail and analysis and health consciousness. And it having Saturn there can indicate that there could be some kind of chronic health issue or something that there needs to be a very disciplined approach to, which could lead to the idea that there could be potential rigidity or stress related issues to maintaining those teams. Okay. When we look at Virgo, we think digestive system, intestines, and the overall well-being. And with Saturn there, you're looking at possible issues with digestion, maybe stress-related digestive issues. And he's known, it's documented, that he was meticulous in his acting roles. He was very consumed by trying to be as perfect as possible and reach, just perfection. And he put a lot of pressure on himself to perform, which could lead to issues, that stress and digestion issues for him. I think that Saturn also says that he's required to have a very structured and disciplined approach to what he's doing in his routine and in his structure, which could be very challenging if you think about it for somebody who's an actor. His career was very erratic by nature. I mean, they go all over the place. Sometimes they have to gain weight, sometimes they have to lose weight, sometimes they're in multiple places around the world. Weird schedules, and I mean, just a lot of things that could have been very stressful for him. Okay. When we look at his eighth house, it's in Scorpio and it has Uranus. Okay. So when we think about that, we have Uranus in Scorpio. All right. First, okay, eighth house, you've got somebody there that, especially with it being in Scorpio and having Uranus there, they're going to deal with transformation, perhaps crisis, in things like, well, all aspects of life, but I mean, could be intense things to do with death and sexuality and rebirth and things of that nature. And when we look at Scorpio, which is ruled by Pluto and Mars, that adds to it even another layer of intensity and secretiveness and a desire to transform, not just a need, but the desire to transform. And that Uranus would bring in sudden, unexpected changes or disruptions in his pattern. Yes, sudden death. Yes. All right. So as far as health implications go from this house, okay, we know Scorpio rules reproductive organs, bladder, colon. Like I said, it could be sudden issues in these areas. I can't say that I found anything publicly documented, but I don't know that those are things that it might talk about. I do know that he died after have had his first child. He had a child and then they got divorced like within a year or two, and then he died. So that might kind of in the background put forth some information there. I think if we look at the nature of his overdose, it's written accidental in a lot of the articles that I read. And that would fit into this pattern because it would highlight kind of an unpredictable and intense nature that would go along with this placement. And it would suggest a potential kind of volatility in health matters, especially if it was related to stress and transforming. Okay. And then we come over here to a whole lot of energy that he has in his 12th house. Okay. So 12th house, we've got Mercury, Venus, Mars, all in Pisces. And so, again, we're looking at subconscious mind, mental health, hidden enemies, places of confinement. So, Pisces is ruled by Neptune, which is very sensitive, can be dreamy, imaginative, struggling with boundaries. All right. And this house often, signifies areas that are hidden, something that we don't immediately see, something that isn't immediately obvious. Right. So when we look at the health pieces that go with this, okay, Pisces is feet, lymphatic system. But if we look more deeply into that 12th house, it's linked to mental health, addiction, and chronic illness. Okay. So Mercury, Venus, and Mars in Pisces would highlight significant mental and emotional challenge. Yes. And he has a lot of retrograde planets, which are taking him internal. Yes. A lot of introspection, probably too much introspection. All right. So we're looking at that. We're looking at maybe his communication and mental processes might have been a little clouded. Maybe it would lead him sometimes to be having confusion, anxiety, maybe some depressive tendencies. This placement might indicate, a mind that was struggling with clarity, and maybe one that was prone to escapism. The Venus could express emotional needs and love that could maybe have been idealized, that might have led him to have maybe disillusionment in his relationships with people. It could have a sensitivity. You know, it could lead to maybe contributing to emotional turmoil and escapism through substances. Mars, we're looking at his energy and his drive being very diffused by Pisces, which might have led to a lack of direction, or maybe that escapism again through drugs, alcohol. That Mars in Pisces could contribute to kind of having maybe a passive aggressive demeanor and maybe difficult asserting himself sometimes clearly. All right. So about this concentration of planets in Pisces in the 12th house, I would say that this suggests struggles with mental health that include anxiety, depression, and a tendency towards escapism through substance. I would say that he's reliance on prescription medications, including painkillers and sleep aids, would be reflective of this place. I think 12th house often signifies hidden or self-undoing behaviors. And in his case, it led tragically to an overdose. Okay. So when you look at this, I mean, he's got some complex energy here that's all interplaying in his chart. And so I think these all kind of describe and detail his health challenges. And I want to bring a little attention to the 4th house, because I told you, I think this 4th house is very significant. Oh, Carla, I just noticed your hand. I'm sorry.
No, I was just curious when you were talking about the 12th house, and I was looking at that and the 6th house. I was just wondering, I mean, I know Virgo is service, and I'm just wondering, but I don't know that much about his life, but he a type person that was just self-sacrificing and giving to everybody and maybe not getting it back, maybe?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Like I said, he had really high expectations, I think, of himself and of being of value. And I think that was part of his struggle. Yes. When we look at the 4th house, remember, this is where we're finding the kind of the emotional state, what's going on emotionally. And he has his moon and he has Jupiter in there. So that leads me to believe that he had perhaps sometimes very optimistic emotions, but relationships, nurturing, love, all of that was very important to him. And that Jupiter's at the last degree of the 4th house. So I can't tell you whether it was a Jupiter that was bringing in abundance or was causing him to be too much, to expand perhaps too much, to expand his emotions, to expand his point of view. In that, again, 4th house, I see nurturing. That's his soul. That's his root. He had Jupiter and the moon in his root. And so I think that might have been stressful as well. All right. So now let's jump in here and take a look at his death chart, because I find this interesting. All right. So when we look at this chart, again, let's just kind of focus here on our health houses. I did not have an exact time of death, so I put it for new. Okay. So we don't know if the ascendant is correct on this. But if it is, that would be very strong and a very powerful statement. Because you have ascendant, of course, with ascendant. We're looking at this ascendant conjuncting his natal ascendant and sun which would, I think, highlight a critical time for his physical body and vitality. Yes, Saturn return. I knew somebody would see that. Yep, he was in his Saturn return. And, and so I think just looking at this first house, it tells you that this was a moment in time where he had a heightened physical and mental activity that could have been exasperated, even more so for him, by stress and health issue. Okay. All right. I want to come over here to the fourth, because like I said, I'm including the fourth in this because I think this is important. The moon was almost conjunct Jupiter. It was 4 degrees. All right. So he's got his moon in Cancer natally, which we just talked about, which would have said that he could have very likely had emotional turmoil that manifested in physical issues for him, like something to do with digestion or stress or those kinds of things. If you look at that death chart, it's transiting that moon in Cancer, and it's in the same house as it, and you've got Jupiter. And if you think about it, that moon probably would have hit conjunct the day before, which could have been a very powerful and intense made him very vulnerable and have maybe feeling his emotional pain as that moon was transiting his Cancer. It really could have been emphasizing that emotional stress and those physical manifestations that he had going on. Right. When we jump over here to the 6th, as was just said, he is in the process of a Saturn return, which is, of course, a period of significant stress and transformation in not only his health, but in his life. Because it's a time when, you have life-altering events. Like I said, he had become a father in a year or two of this. He had been married within a few years of this. He had divorced within a few years of this. But this could, if you're looking at life-altering events in health, this could bring about, especially with the North Node also being there, some concerning things. Yes, Carla.
I just want to say I remembered that around the time of his death, I know they said I think he had just finished or was near the end of finishing that Dark Knight movie you were talking about. And yes. I know he died at one of the Olsen twins' apartments or something like that, because he wasn't at his house. He was renting something from them. And yes. I know they said he was having problems not sleeping because I guess he gets so deep into the character, he was starting to, take on some of the energy of this character. So yes. I'm just wondering what that would have contributed to his demise, him being such a method actor and so deep into that yes. character of the yes. Joker. Was that yes. contributed?
Yes. Well, think about it. Could that be the moon almost conjunct with Jupiter? He was intensely, deeply into the emotions of his character. They have online, if you look through them, they have journals he was making during that period of time as he was prepping and moving into and becoming one with this character. Quite fascinating. I enjoyed the study that went with this. So if we look at the 8th house, as we talked about, he's got Uranus there and Scorpio. So if we look though, okay, because that's natally, but look over here. It's in this chart, it's transiting that 12th house, which I think reinforces that potential for sudden, unexpected health events tied to psychological stress, emotional crisis. I think it really indicates some deep subconscious disturbance going on. And when we look at when we look at just what's happening here, and just a few other pieces that kind of stuck out to me. You've got Neptune here in the 11th house and in this chart, and in Aquarius. And you also have Chiron in Aquarius, which would make me, and you've got Mercury in between transiting that 11th house. I almost wonder if there was that was leading maybe into that, how do I want to put this? The delusion, the confusion, the desire to escape. With Chiron there, pushing forth, those unhealed wounds, especially him being very young. You've got that wounding there that would not have, been worked through like you would see in someone older. And you had the sun in that same space, and you were looking at a nodal situation there. You had the north node, all right, which was bringing in energy. Think about it when you're bringing in that Aquarius, you're bringing independence, you're bringing in, feeling of being apart from the social identity that you're part of. Like I said, a lot of intensity there. You've got Jupiter in that 10th house. Like I said, we're looking at, you've got the ascendant to ascendant conjunct if we have the time anywhere near right, which was saying a critical thing with body and identity. You've got the Saturn return, which was that transformative, thing. You've got the moon and Jupiter aspects showing that heightened emotional state, the potential for overindulgence or exasperation of something that already existed. I really think when you look at this chart that you see a natal chart that shows high stress, emotional sensitivity, and some mental health challenge. And then you look at the time of his death and the things that were transiting and it being a Saturn return. And I think all of this really intensified those issues and probably led to a period of really significant emotional and psychological turmoil. And the alignment of all these critical planets, I think, just underscored a time of profound stress and transformation that ultimately, I think, correlated with his untimely death. But it's kind of interesting as you look through these to see that correlation. So. All right. Our next part of the series, our fourth part, we have two left, is interpreting aspects for health. It's going to be on July the 26th at 7 p.m. And to reserve a space, you need to reach out one of our methods, either through subscribing to the Eventbrite or registering there with them, or joining the email list, because I send out the links to the people on the email list. However it is that you want to go about that. But if you want to attend, it's not going to be on Meetup. It's going to be on Eventbrite. And if by chance you missed any of the presentations prior to this one, I have the recording and the slides linked here in this slide. So you have the recording for the first session and the slides, and the recording for the second session and the slides. And if you attended the second session and you didn't get a copy of the corrected slides, these are the correct ones, although I did send them out with the recording. All right. And this is where I pause and I say questions, thoughts. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm on time, so we're good. You are very welcome, Lynn. Yeah. So I'm hoping as we go through these different layers that you guys are kind of putting things together, getting the pieces lined up. I'm going to throw the notes in there just in case one of you didn't grab them, but I'm guessing you already all did. And let me stop the recording because I don't want us to go too long.